Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing a very important topic. Today we'll be speaking about the Egyptian women empowerment in Egypt. And we are shedding this in light of the Egyptian leadership importance given to the women to capitalize on its human resources and in order to enhance both the quality and the quantity of the available human resources within the framework of the Egyptian Sustainable Development or Egypt's vision for 2030. And I guess there is no much better than a very prominent figure, a very prominent woman in the Egyptian diplomacy we have with us today to speak about this particular issue. Let me here welcome our very distinguished guest, Ambassador Mervat El Talawy. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you.
Let me here give a very brief idea about the woman I'm speaking about. And Dr. Talawy, Director General of the Arab Women Organization, 2014, member of the Committee of the 50 for drafting the new constitution for Egypt 2013, President of the National Council for Women 2012, Coordinator General for the First Arab Economic Summit in Kuwait 2009, appointed Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Women Asia on November 2000, Minister of Insurance and Social Affairs in Egypt 1997 till 1999. She was also the Ambassador of Egypt in Vienna, Austria until 1991. From 1991 till 1993, she was Assistant Foreign Minister. From 1993 till 1997, she served as Egypt's Ambassador to Japan. Dr. Talawy held the post of the Minister for Insurance and Social Affairs, as we said previously, from 1997 till 1999. From 1985 till 1988 was the Deputy Director of the United Nations International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women, and definitely participated in the United Nations Secretary Assembly Declaration on the Protection of Women and Children in Time of Armed Conflict in 1974, participated in drafting the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, where reference to rural women was first introduced by Ambassador Talawy in Article 14 of the Convention in 1997, and I have all the pleasure of having her tonight with me to speak about women empowerment in Egypt. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have this quick report on Egypt's steady steps towards achieving women's empowerment. Let's watch.
اختيارك للي عايز للبلد دي الخير واجب بجد عليك. يلا شارك، انت شايل مسؤولية مش عادية، مد ايديك. اختيارك للي عايز للبلد دي الخير واجب بجد عليك. يلا شارك، انت شايل مسؤولية مش عادية، مد ايديك. كلنا مهما اختلفنا بنتفق على حاجة واحدة، ان اسم مصري على فوق. احنا لبلادنا اعترفنا بالغلاوة والمودة زي ما ادت هي ليها حقوق. كلنا مهما اختلفنا بنتفق على حاجة واحدة، ان اسم مصري على فوق. احنا لبلادنا اعترفنا بالغلاوة والمودة زي ما ادت هي ليها حقوق. مصرنا اللي مجمعانا عايزة فولادها الضمير، انتخب صوتك أمانة، أيوة ده بيفرق كتير. مصرنا اللي مجمعانا عايزة فولادها الضمير، انتخب صوتك أمانة، أيوة ده بيفرق كتير.
During a speech delivered by video to the United Nations General Assembly on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women and the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, President Sisi stated that Egypt has taken steady steps towards the achievement of equality and the empowerment of women in recent years. He added that women represent half of society and must be taken care of to ensure the renaissance, reform, and progress of society as a whole, and to achieve sustainable development. The event had the theme of accelerating the realization of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. In his speech to the UNGA, the President stated that last year, Egypt celebrated 100 years of Egyptian women's participation in public life, and it was one of the first countries in the world to set a national strategy for the protection and empowerment of women politically, economically, and socially. The President added that the legislative framework related to women has also been developed by adopting a number of new laws and amending existing legislation, and as a result, Egyptian women will be guaranteed full equality and equal opportunities, and their active participation in the community movement will be ensured without any discrimination. The President asserted that such efforts proved successful, and as a result, women's representation in the cabinet and the Egyptian parliament has increased to 25%, in parallel with their occupancy of senior positions in the judiciary and other important positions, including as a provincial governor and national security advisors.
Right, welcome back and back to our topic. Let me again welcome our very distinguished guest, Ambassador Dr. Mervat El Talawy. Thank you again for being with us. And last year, Egypt celebrated 100 years of Egyptian women participation in public life. And it was one of the first countries in the world to set a national strategy for the protection and empowerment of women politically, economically, and socially. You're one of the most prominent figures that contributed to the Egyptian diplomacy. How did you see the or women in Egypt and how they developed in those decades?
I think I saw quite a progress in all this field. Legal, many laws have been strengthened, and some of them have been moved to criminal law, like the violence. Where the support, the political support that women in Egypt today has indicate that finally the government and the politician understood the meaning and the value of empowering women on the economy, on the society, on the family. And this is very rewarding. We can spend so many hours stating from 1919 up till now, these 100 years, how many events women participated in, fighting the British occupation, fighting the ruler for whatever decision they took. We had a number of women killed in 1919 as a result of this revolution. The support of women to the revolution that took place in Egypt, particularly the January
30th. No, the January 25th.
January 2011.
25th.
Yeah, 25th of January 2011. And it was astonishing on the 30th of June 1913.
2013.
2013, sorry.
Yes.
No, 1913.
20. You mean 30th of June, the June 30th revolution
Yeah.
against
20, yes, 20, of course,
2013.
2013. So it was amazing. I was in the Tahrir Square speaking in the rally, and I was standing on
Stage.
a stage that is higher than like in the first or second floor, and looking down, it's all women, and their voices were very high. After that, as a head of the National Council of Women, we monitored the 3 elections, and the women were very enthusiastic about this election, whether voting on the Constitution or the presidential or the parliament. And when you ask the women, I asked one of in this popular places like Ain Shams or whatever, why you are so happy and dancing and singing? You are here to cast your vote, that's it. And her answer was, I am so happy that we managed to kick the Ikhwan Muslimin out. So this is a simple woman. She's not a professor, she's not a legal minded, she's a simple woman. So the women, since this revolution, they started to endorse their role in politics and to have a voice in the political issues against all the history that women's role is in the home and kitchen and cooking and having children, that's it.
I guess one of the figures that really showed that women is partner in life and that she can go in at any place and she can really satisfy her position and satisfy the needs of the position was you. You joined the diplomatic front since early 60s,
yes.
And I guess that you contributed a lot during that period.
I think I was also fighting hard to ensure that women in the diplomacy will take her place. Because at the time, Mrs. Sadat allocated 30 seats in the parliament for women. And she asked me to join those 30 seats, and I refused, telling her that I have a mission to continue, to finish. This is to ensure that women in the diplomacy will continue, and we would like to open the door for a real participation of women in diplomacy.
Yes.
She was not very happy, but at the end she
got convinced.
Yeah. So I'm saying that my presence as of the early 60s in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, although we had been discriminated against so many times by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who refused to let the women diplomat to be transferred to the embassies around the world, with the aim that women will get frustrated and will not join anymore the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So their work would be only local, inside the country, not as a head of mission or...
Yes.
But I opened the door for women in diplomacy. Now I was the first woman to be appointed as head of mission in Vienna in '87.
Yes, indeed.
And this is thanks to President Mubarak, because they were sure, our male colleagues in the ministry, they were sure that we will never reach this position. They will let us be first secretary, counselor, minister of plenipotentiary, but not heading a mission abroad. And it was in '87 that I was appointed by President Mubarak as head of the mission in Vienna. And in Vienna, you have to have 4 portfolios, because you have one as bilateral ambassador to Vienna, to Austria. Second, as governor of Egypt to the Atomic Energy Agency. Third, for the organization of industrial development, UNIDO. And fourth, for the humanitarian activity, UN activities in Vienna.
So in fact, you served in all sectors, segments, I mean here the political, the economic, the social, and even the strategic one. We're speaking here about the nuclear agency.
Agency, yes.
Let me here come back to our era. And 6 years, we've been speaking about many developments that took place during those 6 years. You have witnessed part of it, you have put some of it when you were part of the 50 who made the new constitution.
Yeah.
And definitely we're speaking here about 6 years of hard efforts and of capitalizing on the human resources we have. President Sisi has made sure that all the Egyptian capital, or that we capitalize on all our human resources. And he was, or he put in the forefront empowering women.
Right.
How did you read this, and how did you read the keenness of the leadership to achieve such an issue?
Because I read it that he understood very well the role of different segments of the society in developing the country. Therefore, against all the very conservative social culture in the country, because the presence of the religious people who took freedom to spread false allegation about Islam have affected the simple people in Egypt with a very conservative mind and action. And this is what now we are trying to change. When President Sisi requested Al-Azhar to change the language of any address.
Yes, the discourse, the religious discourse.
Yeah. It is indeed the presence, the support of President Sisi to women, having a year for women, changing the legal, the laws, and even the structure of the Ministry of Interior. We have changed it. This to have a department within the Ministry of Interior to help in the violence against women and to take it serious, because before that they would kick you away if you are complaining from somebody violating you or harassment or whatever. So we changed it, the structure of the Ministry of Interior, and they became very forceful and a believer in this. So the support of the president to women have made a balance against the reactionary thinking of some of our sheikh and religious people.
When we speak about the share of women, by tracking the share of seats in parliaments, senates held by women, of female legislators, senior officials, managers, females in professions, and even in technical or as technicians, technical work. How do you view the Egyptian women's current participation in the Egyptian life, not only on the political side, but also on the economic one?
First of all, what happened to the women in Egypt recently is that we succeeded to convince the head of the political parties and other public figures who have an inherited saying that we don't have qualified women in the country. They started to discover that indeed we have very well qualified women in all the fields. And this I heard from the head of some of the parties, old parties like Al-Wafd, and with somebody like me who is pressing hard to change the mentality. They started, I heard it recently from business people, that they prefer the employment of women than men in their factories. Why? Because women are steadily in their work, they don't, to be absent all the time is not their course, while the men, they come one day and they they disappear the second day. So it is something good that business people and the head of parties, political parties, they started to change their mentality and to look at women differently.
In business world, they say, if you want a job to be done, give it to a woman.
Yeah. Finally, they started. And today, we were surprised that the vice president of the Shura Council is a woman.
Yes.
Which is good to have this. So everywhere, it's not only the number of women in the cabinet or in the parliament, 25% of the parliament now, women, the parliament, and in the Shura is 13 out of the 10% of the 300 that
were appointed.
So everywhere you find women, whether she's in the chemistry or ministry of oil, or so everywhere.
Indeed.
And as if you took off the cover, and they were surprised to find women in all the fields.
When President Sisi assumed office, he was speaking about a certain agenda, an agenda for sustainable development, an agenda for a vision that goes until 2030.
Yeah.
And one of the issues that he stressed on was empowering women so as to be part of this agenda, or to be a contributor to this agenda. How do you assess women participation in the state's sustainable development vision, and what are exactly their capabilities to go on with such a vision?
You see, there are many data that the public do not know about. During my days in the UN and in the Arab League, we discovered international statistics saying for the sustainable development, because we made like 15 research on women and sustainable development. We find that women, when they work, 90% of their salary is spent on the education and health of their children, while the men, a man would spend only 30% on education and health of his, and the rest for his pocket. You see, it's number two. They told me, what do women do with tsunami and climate change and all of this? This is one of the 17 principles of the sustainable development. The statistics indicate that the result of this environmental change, when you have an earthquake or tsunami or whatever, the number of women killed is double the men. Why? Because there is no training or information to women that when there is a catastrophe, you should do 1, 2, 3. Or you hide your head under a table or something like this. They only think of men. However, the fatality are in women. So President Sisi discovered that with the economic reform that he made, women stood very strong behind him and made the severity of the economic reform passes reasonably in their families by her doing and managing the budget of her family. And this is why he has indicated that women should be everywhere. And look at this idea of the Mar al-Mu'ayla, how to say it?
The household women, the women...
the breadwinner for many families, the only breadwinner for the family are the women.
كرامة تكافل?
No. We are speaking about an old idea that women they are not the provider of for the family, according to Sharia. And therefore, when a woman passes away, her pension fund, her pension will not go to her family, her husband and her children. Why? Because she's not a provider. Till we brought to them that there is 5 million women who are the sole provider for their families. And then we changed the law of the pension fund that this money should go to her family like men. And not only that, but they started to look at this huge number of women, how to help them, how to, from having ID, from having social medical care, from having to take fund from the bank and so on and so forth. And now you can see the small and medium businesses, mainly 80 to 90% are women who are benefiting from the this business.
Yes. Before we continue on with our discussion, let's have this break with this report. And Egypt ranks first in the region for taking 21 measures to support women during COVID-19. Let's watch.